Hi, welcome to Semiconductor Geopolitics, Taiwan's View. This is the first episode of our Cross-Strait series, and I'm talking about the Taiwan Strait. Within this series, we'll focus on semiconductor industry in both Taiwan and China. The powerful actor hidden in this scene is, of course, the United States, or the Biden administration to be precise. TSMC's decision to set up a wafer fab in Phoenix, Arizona was something that attracted global attention. This construction project is still ongoing as we are filming this episode. And TSMC's fab in Arizona, which is also called Fab 21, has not yet been completed. In this episode, we'll try to give a broader picture of this story and answer one question. What is TSMC's decision-making process behind all this? In 2020, the US had its big election year, with Trump and Biden running for president. They were ongoing head-to-head in a fierce competition. On May 15, 2020, TSMC dropped a press release announcing its intention to build and operate an advanced foundry in US with the mutual understanding and the commitment to support from the US federal government and the state of Arizona. And construction is planned to start in 2021, with production targeted to begin in 2024. TSMC's total spending on this project, including capital expenditure, will be approximately $12 billion from 2021 to 2029. This facility, which will be built in Arizona, will utilize TSMC's 5nm technology for semiconductor wafer fabrication, have a 20,000 semiconductor wafer per month capacity.
So my personal opinion, definitely TSMC, they did not want to go initially, but due to certain reason, they have to go to support the government's direction, both US and Taiwan government.
Definitely is a political pressure. I still remember that when there's a Assistant Secretary of Commerce visit Taiwan, I mean, it's quite a big high-level officials. He's not meeting with, he met with the government officials, but he went straight away to Hsinchu to meet with Morris Chang.
逼着台积电要去美国设比较先进制程的晶圆厂，最重要的原因就在于说，它确实有它的国防需求。当新竹有地震的时候，通常台积电接到的第一通电话是来自于美国五角大厦，也就是说，美国很多先进的一些军事设备，它的很多晶片是委由台积电代工。
我想台积电去美国投资当然是被迫的。原先我们并没有看得那么的不好，因为不管怎么样，就是说台积电现在已经是全球市值前10大的公司，可是台湾的 GDP 在全世界21名，我们的人口、我们的土地在全世界排名更后面，所以整个台湾的资源很少，它很难去支持一家这么大的企业去做不断的成长跟扩充，所以他去海外投资，我们其实原先是抱持的是乐观，而且也是正面的，
正面看待。
对。
It's not something whether TSMC will want to do. Okay, it is something that TSMC must do to separate their manufacturing from Taiwan to other places in the world. Not only for safety reason, not only for geopolitics reason, but also for supply chain protection reason. Therefore, this is something that we will see that will happen.
I don't think that's quite the case. Given that, if the U.S. government is trying to bully the TSMC or the Taiwanese government, what leverage does the U.S. government have, right?
对台积电而言，他去买美国应用材料的一些生产工具，那这些东西呢，都是美国的智慧财产权。我运用它的这个工具去生产，然后卖给中国大陆，我很有可能被管制到。所以都让台积电没有办法不去因应美国可能对中国政策的改变。
As the current global hegemon, the US has many methods to fine-tune the semiconductor supply chain. For example, on May 15, 2020, exactly on the same day that TSMC announced its Arizona project, the BIS of US Department of Commerce announced that it would ban overseas foundries using US equipment to accept commissions from the Chinese communications giant Huawei to produce chips. Well, TSMC is one of those wafer fabs, and the largest one that uses US equipment. This is a further increased penalty after BIS sanctions on Huawei Technologies and its 114 subsidiaries, restricting the export of US goods to Huawei a year ago. At that time, Huawei was the second largest customer of TSMC, only after Apple, accounting for about 15% of TSMC's annual revenue. This matter may not be directly related to TSMC's intention to invest in the US, but to an extent, one may say this is definitely some kind of pressure.
TSMC and Taiwan government, I think governments from Japan, from South Korea, and from the Netherlands, they would feel the same pressure as well. So because of Secretary Raimondo, her remarks demonstrate US position very clearly that US need to strive for a self-sufficient chip cluster. However, it remains very, very challenging for the United States to achieve this goal. Even Biden gets reelected for another 4 years.
So, Uncle Sam offers not only the stick, but the carrot also.
I think really what happened here is that the US government tried to offer subsidies to induce TSMC to go to the US, right?
The so-called subsidy is stipulated in the US CHIPS and Science Act, which is of great importance in attracting semiconductor manufacturers to return to the United States. CHIPS in the CHIPS Act stands for Creating Helpful Incentives for Production of Semiconductors. According to the Act, the US government will give semiconductor businesses, including TSMC, subsidies if they invest in US soil. The total subsidy budget prepared was $39 billion out of the budget of the whole Act, $52.7 billion. CHIPS and Science Act was signed by President Biden on August 9, 2022. And by March of 2024, the boosts haven't dropped yet. During this period of time, TSMC's fab in Kumamoto was already completed with good subsidy from the Japanese government.
黑老大哥要小弟去帮他拼命要给他安家费啊，这个给他补贴啊。那我们一直没有拿到补贴这件事，我觉得其实是不太对的啦，
Finally, on April 8, 2024, as we were producing this series, TSMC Arizona and the US Department of Commerce announced a deal of up to $6.6 billion in proposed CHIPS Act direct funding and the TSMC plans third leading-edge fab in Phoenix. Okay, many people aren't aware that the Arizona fab is not TSMC's first overseas investment plan. In fact, TSMC tried to step out of Taiwan before, even without subsidies. Really? Why? And where did TSMC go?
现在可能大家都忘了，在张忠谋之前，台积电曾经有3个老外，我们股票上市是在不是当总经理的时候股票上市之后他才离开的。那因为这个美国人嘛，他那时候可能也比较积极的，就说，台湾有地震问题啊，还有客户要求啊，说我们为什么不去到美国？
So going overseas to production, even though for Taiwan, we are really reluctant to do it because we never been very good at the overseas production. There's no reason we want to go, but we had to deal with the risk management. Actually, in 1999, September 21st, there was an earthquake in Nantou in Taiwan. I still remember many of my customers come to Taiwan, ask us to spread our production site. And that's part of the reason we actually have a fab in Washington State called WaferTech. We have a fab in Singapore called SSMC. We have a fab in Songjiang in China.
In 2016, TSMC exported the most advanced process technology, 16 nanometers, developed in Taiwan, to Nanjing. This showed TSMC was very optimistic about China's chip market, which was proved to be very correct because this Fab 16 is still making good profit right now. Fab 16 in Nanjing, built in 2016 with 16nm process technology, was also one of TSMC's overseas ventures. When it was founded, 16nm was the most advanced process technology that TSMC possessed. It is now, of course, restricted by BIS regulations and only producing 28nm chips. It seems that both political and commercial considerations have an impact on TSMC's decision of building foundry in Arizona. But which weighs more?
As I mentioned earlier, in democratic nations, states are not all powerful. They are very powerful, but ultimately they cannot just command firms to do X or Y, or Z. So in that regard, I think what's more important is to look at how TSMC's business partners, such as Apple, how they have really pushed TSMC to diversify. So I think this is probably a much more important and relevant story to explain TSMC's moving of its operation, one of its operations, to Arizona.
Unfortunately, in 2023, while TSMC's Arizona Fab 21 was actively in construction, we kept hearing that its progress was impeded.
在那边两边的冲突是真的是非常明显的，建厂速度太慢，台积电把台湾的一些整个工程队包飞机过去，美国工会马上抗议，然后最后还是只能回来，所以它建厂速度跟它原先的预期真的慢了很多。然后呢，在这过程里面，所有的建厂成本不断的增加。
Finally, on July 20, 2023, TSMC Chairman Mark Liu announced at the corporate briefing that the first phase of mass production of the 4nm process at the Arizona Fab would be postponed from 2024 to 2025. The reason is lack of skilled installation workers. Six months later, on January 18, 2024, TSMC Chairman Mark Liu revealed again at a corporate briefing that the mass production time of TSMC's second phase of Fab 21 in Arizona using 3nm technology will be postponed from the original scheduled 2026 to at least 2027 or even 2028. What we've just shown you was the trajectory of TSMC's investment and construction in Arizona. Oh, by the way, the speech we just saw from TSMC Chairman Mark Liu was the last time he hosted a corporate briefing. Earlier on December 9, 2023, TSMC announced that Mark Liu would retire after the shareholders meeting in July 2024.
台积电在这一件事情不如预期。那我相信这中间有外面的因素，也有内部的因素让这个刘董事长觉得说不如归去不如退休这样子。
What is certain is that TSMC's new board of directors will continue to complete the construction of the Arizona fab. However, the real challenge only starts until the fab is completed. After all, a company's goal is to increase revenue and profits for their shareholders. Where will the orders of Fab 21 come from? Can the chips it produces be as cost efficient as those made in Taiwan? These are all still undecided. If you enjoyed this episode or you are interested in knowing more information behind the story, I highly recommend you to watch our next episode, How US Building Supply Chain Shakes Global Chip Industry. This is our first episode of Cross Strait series. See you next time.